Hello and welcome back to the MLB DFS Slate Breakdown for Tuesday, September 24th. We only have a few more big slates left, and we're going to be going over one now. We got 10 games on the dock to go over, all of which look pretty interesting, and there's definitely some playoffs concerns or watches to be had on tonight's slate. Now, we're well into football season. Basketball literally starts in less than 1 month now. Come get involved now. We have a few ways that are cheap to get involved. It through the App Store, 7-day free trial through Android or iOS App Store. Come try us out. Then join us for $39.99 a month. Or if you just love us, go to $39.99 for the year, which is $19.99 per month. Now let's go. Let's get into the slate. We're going to skip the perfect lineup and winning lineups for the last week. Just doesn't make much sense to go over it now. When at this point, if you don't start understanding lineup construction a little bit more, I don't know what to tell you. You need to stack. The winners are all doing it. Be like them. All right, now let's get into the slate. Highest owned, we got Bailey Ober and Framber Valdez. Those two all morning have been switching between 1A, 1B for highest owned. Right now we got Bailey Ober at 21%. I don't mind Ober. He's fine. He's versus the Marlins, who surprisingly have been good lately over the last 20 games. They're hitting almost 280, a 170 ISO, 338 WOBA versus righties. I whatsoever do not mind Ober, but I also do not mind stacking against him because he has games where he gives up 9 runs in two innings, 5 earned runs and 6.2. He has these down games where he just gives it up, but then he has the ceiling, like versus Detroit, 8 innings, no earned runs, 11 Ks. I mean, Cleveland last week, 12 Ks, 2 earned runs, 7 innings. He has that kind of ceiling, and I'm still interested in him. But it isn't a slam dunk matchup like we thought it would be at this point in the season. Next, we got Framber Valdez, 20% owned, 10K, 2.2x. The dude has been absolute dealing. He's averaging 37% more fantasy points while at home. 2.89 FIP over his last 20, 2.52 over his last 5. All of that looks fine and dandy. But over the last 20 games, Seattle's actually been hitting decently. 257 average, 125 ISO, so very low ISO, but a 329 WOBA. They're not hitting the ball as hard, but they're getting more people on base, getting more runs, doing some damage that way. And they have been good versus Framber. 120 plate attempts. They're hitting 330 with 4 home runs, 217 ISO, 394 WOBA. You have to go back to the beginning of the 2022 season for him to have broken 20 points versus the Seattle team. Now, that is also the last ceiling the last year that he was very, very good. He is back into that very good form now. So who knows what he can do today, but I don't love the spot for him. However, I still don't mind it. Next, we got Brandon Pfaff versus the San Francisco Giants. Willy Wonka's Giants, and they have just kind of laid down. They have laid over. They're playing dead. They want the season to be over. 212 average, 147 ISO, 274 WOBA over the last 20 games versus righties. And Brandon Pfaff has been good all season. 3.83 FIP, 3.75 over the last 5. He is inconsistent, but when he's on, he has very solid K rate. Giants are striking out a lot right now. I think it's an interesting spot where you have a 28% combined K rate. So I love the upside in this spot, but I don't mind having some Giants exposure as well as Brandon Pfaff. Obviously, not in the same lineup, but I am interested in this game and am going to have some Pfaff, going to have some Giants. Next, we got Nathan Eovaldi versus Oakland A's. Oakland has been an interesting team where they have got super hot over stretches and then have cooled down. They're in a cool down stretch. 245 average, 130 ISO, 295 WOBA over the last 20 games versus righties. Not great. Eovaldi, meanwhile, has been decent, above average pitcher, low FIP, 4 FIP. His strikeout rate, bounces between 23, 25%. Combined K rate, 24%. But when he's on, he has big time ceiling. So I'm definitely interested in him. However, his floor is way too low. So he is a little bit risky, but I do like the spot, and I'm probably going to have a decent amount because I think this game is one of those potential upside ones. He tends to play better versus poor competition, and Oakland's not hitting very well right now. Bowden Francis. All right, this is one that I think I'm going to push our projection up a little bit on. 8.3 Ks, 1.6X. We only have him at 13, but he hasn't been under 13 in a start since he took over the role in August. Everyone is at low 15, at high 41. He has 4 games of close to 30, so there's close to 40 or over 30, counting 29 in that. And then 1 game of 19 and 3 of mid-teens that wouldn't get it done. He's pitching really, really well. 3.96 FIP, 4.19 over his last 5. K rate's 23%. We have a combined K rate of almost 26%. Red Sox have been just awful versus righties lately. I'm interested in this spot, and I'm pushing this projection up a little bit to make sure I get some of him. I think 1.3x is, or 1.6x is too low. I'm going to have some. Next, we got Clark Schmidt, 7.9K, 2.2x, 3.58 FIP over the last 5, 2.1 ERA, 24% K rate. He's been pitching pretty well, but over that last 5, he still doesn't have a score that you really, really need on DK. He has 2 starts of high 20s or 30s that are very good. Outside of that, you don't really need him. I worry about his upside in the spot versus a very good Baltimore offense, and for that reason, I'm probably not really going to get much. Next, we got Spencer Swallenbach, 8.9K, 2.2x. This is a straight-up playoff game. One of these teams sweeps the other. They're in the playoffs. That's just how it's going to break down. Whoever wins this series has a big leg up on a playoff spot. There's 3 teams going for the last 2 playoff spots, being the Mets, Braves, and Arizona. All are very close together. It's anybody's game. Swallenbach has been good. 3.34 FIP over his last 20 with the 26% K rate. 3.74, the 21% K rate over the last 5. The Mets have cooled down a little bit on offense. I don't mind trying to pick on them when the wind is blowing in and it's in Atlanta. I think Swallenbach is a little bit interesting. Logan Gilbert, I never like to face the Astros. They aren't hitting that great right now, though, versus righties. But Logan Gilbert is averaging 25% less fantasy points away. Now, Gilbert is good enough to slice and dice any team, so I wouldn't mind too much to have him, and he's too good of a pitcher to not consider when this pitcher has done well in Houston. Put up 30 in May versus them. Last year, put up 27 versus them. Put up 17. He has a history of doing okay versus them, so I'm there for it, but I don't love the spot. Michael King is another guy that I'm going to consider. Look, the Dodgers are 1-5 versus the Padres over the last 6 games they've played. Michael King has big time upside, and you're talking about a guy that has a 2.55 FIP and 29% K rate over his last 20 starts. That is Cy Young quality. If he gets another full season of that, he's going to be in that talk. He has been extremely good, and I don't mind going there whatsoever. And 78 plate attempts, they're hitting 247 off him. They do have a high ISO, but also striking out at 31%. He may give up a home run or 2. As long as no one's on base, it's not going to kill him. He did put up 35 versus them last time out. 7 innings, no earned runs, 11 Ks. But he's had 2 rough outings versus them too. You don't know what you're going to get. I think the ceiling is there if he's on, but the floor is really low too. It's a tough spot. I am interested to get some, though. I think he's too good of a pitcher. Going too low owned, not to consider. Now, let's get over to FanDuel and check out what we got here. Our highest owned pitchers on FanDuel. We got Brandon Pfaff at 18%, 8,600. I don't mind that spot. I don't mind that ownership. I'm absolutely fine with it. And ownership today with pitching doesn't matter that much because it's kind of spread out. Multiple guys I think are interesting. Clark Schmidt, 8.2K. I worry about his upside, and that's the thing is with only having one pitcher, not really having the ability for 50 hurts. And I don't think he really has the ability for 50 in this spot. And that's my one worry. Bailey Ober, 10.3K is a bit expensive, but the ceiling is worth it. He's kind of, Jekyll and Hyde, can be really good or really bad. So I don't mind playing both sides of this one a little bit. I'm going to have some Ober as well. Nathan Eovaldi, one of my favorite pitchers on this slate. The ceiling is legit. He's 9.7K. Our median projection's all right, 3.7X. Oakland's cooled down. I'm interested. Next, we got Bowden Francis. I said I like this one. He's 9K. I said it on DraftKings. I'm pushing this up. I'm going to definitely try and get some of him. However, with what our projection is on him, he's going way over owned. I just think our projection's low. We have him at only 23 since he's got the starting job in early August, 28's his low. So I think this should probably be more like 30-ish. And at that, he starts to look a little interesting. I would even maybe push it up to 32-ish and go from there. I'm intrigued. I think he has the upside to get it done. We've seen it before. Boston's not hitting well versus righties. Framber, 11K is a little steep for me, but he is our highest projected pitcher, so got to have some consideration there. Swollenbach, I think, is super interesting. We have him at 4X. He's 9.1K, second highest projected pitcher, and 4% owned. Don't mind me some Swollenbach. Outside of that, I got to bring up Gilbert and King. Both of those are way too low owned and too good of pitchers, priced moderately not to consider. Very tough spots, but we're talking range of outcomes here. When you're a good pitcher, doesn't matter who you're going against, you have that ability to get 50, 60 fantasy points, even versus good offenses. So I have to at least consider both of them. Now, let's check out some stacks before we wrap it up. Our highest value stack of the day is the White Sox. I like both the White Sox and the Angels. The Angels are going to pop with value a little bit too. Both of them are good spots. Both of them have very bad bullpens behind them. Giants are popping up versus Brandon Pfaff. Makes sense to me. Pfaff has an 8.49 ERA over the last 5. Now, he's been pitching way better than that. He's just inconsistent. There are games that he's going to just keep giving up hits. And, his stuff isn't really working. And with that, I don't mind having some Giants, but I think Pfaff is an interesting pitcher also. Now, our highest owned stacks. We got St. Louis. It's a Colorado game, 10.5 total. Both Colorado and St. Louis are super interesting, and a 60% ownership on a 5-man stack is not enough for me to fade it just due to that. Now, our highest projected stacks, we got Dodgers. I think that is wild. I am not going to have a ton of Dodgers. I will have some. I'm going to likely more so stick to the Stars and have smaller stacks, but I'll have very few big stacks. The one thing I have to bring attention to, though, is with the stacks that we have up here, they're all super expensive. Those aren't going to end up in your lineup most likely. Yankees are also popping up versus Kremer. I think that's a little interesting. Padres are popping up versus Lane and Knack. I love that. And now let's check the highest ceiling. Dodgers all over it. Hey, we talked about King, how he's had one really good game, couple poor games. Dodgers can get to him. They're too good of a hitting team not to have that outcome or that possible outcome. All right, highest implied team total, 5.5 for Colorado and Cardinals. Then 4.7 for the Yankees versus Dean Kremer. Don't mind it. Don't love it. Dodgers versus King at 4.6. Twins at 4.6. And Padres at 4.6. I much prefer Minnesota versus Ryan Weathers or the Padres versus Landon Knack over the Dodgers versus King. King is just a very, very good pitcher. While he can get hit, he's still young, still developing. I think it's much harder for him to get crushed than Minnesota and San Diego when they're not much more owned than the Dodgers also. Next, 4.5, we have both the White Sox and the Angels. Great value in that game. Arizona versus Logan Webb is not one that I love. Webb is just very good at limiting runs. I don't mind a little bit of it, but I'm not going to have much. Atlanta versus Severino, I think, has some interest. Toronto versus Bello. We didn't talk about Brian Bello a little bit. He has had some extremely good games versus Toronto, but he's also got crushed versus them. So I don't mind some Toronto stacks. I just wouldn't go overboard because the chance of Bello being very good in a game is possible. And bullpen behind him is terrible. Oakland versus Nathan Eovaldi. Eovaldi is a little bit inconsistent. If it's an off game, you got a poor bullpen behind him. Makes a lot of sense to go to Oakland, but they're just not as hot as they used to be. Don't love a lot of leverage stacks, but I think Giants and Miami do make some sense if you want to go down and get a little wild in those big GPPs. All right, guys, that'll do it for us today. Please like, comment, and subscribe to the vid. Helps us a ton. We'll be back tomorrow. Peace.